1947. Let's begin with the 1947 fiscal year budget. This budget saw several reductions to it. With this, the budget was set to $4.4 billion. The Navy would spend around $922 million from its wartime surplus fund during the year to end 1947 total expenditures at $5.3 billion. A reduction in Post-War Plan 1A saw the formation of Post-War Plan 2. This saw a fleet consisting of 291 active warships, 42 reserve warships, and a mothball fleet of 632 warships. Of the active ships, there were 4 battleships, 12 fleet carriers, 10 escort carriers, 8 heavy cruisers, 21 light cruisers, 126 destroyers, 30 destroyer escorts, and 80 submarines. The Navy is budgeted for 500,000 personnel. However, since most of the 3.5 million sailors have been discharged, the Navy begins 1947 with a 40,000 shortfall in numbers. This means the Navy will have 40,000 untrained recruits, plus another 50,000 without experience, forming a significant portion of those aboard naval warships. Admiral Nimitz mentions in a meeting with Congress that many ships will have had up to half of its sailors untrained and inexperienced. A stark difference to a year earlier, where the men in the U.S. Navy were the most experienced sailors in history. 1947. 1947 saw a change occur in U.S. foreign relations. The Greek Civil War continued as Britain found itself under financial stress and was forced to pull away its support against the communists in Greece. Truman picked up the slack and requested funds to back the Greek government in the conflict. Truman gave aid to Greece and Turkey, which led to the American foreign policy of Soviet containment dubbed the Truman Doctrine. In January, Operation High Jump is in full swing as the U.S. Navy continues to test its Arctic capabilities while supporting the American Research Station in Antarctica. Also in January, President Truman replaces James Burns with George C. Marshall as Secretary of State. Marshall is now in charge of America's foreign policy. On February 12th, the USS Custer becomes the first submarine to launch a guided missile. Though several African Americans received commissions as reserve officers in World War II, on March 15th, John W. Lee becomes the first black officer to receive a commission in the regular Navy. The Navy's main focus during the first part of this year was the outcome of U.S. military unification. The Army and the about-to-be independent Air Force were challenging the Navy by trying to take away naval aviation and the Marines, calling both redundant to the Army and Air Force capabilities. Eventually, the National Security Act of 1947 was established. On July 26, this act became law, and the National Military Establishment was created, and the U.S. Air Force became a separate branch of the military. The Secretary of the Navy, James Forrestal, becomes the first Secretary of Defense. He was replaced by John Sullivan, who becomes the 49th Secretary of the Navy. The 9th episode of this series goes deeper in this unification process, specifically the bitter fighting between the branches. The first launch of a guided rocket from a U.S. Navy ship takes place on the deck of the USS Midway in Operation Sandy. From October 30th through November 10th, Operation Seminole takes place, which is officially the first joint operation between the Army, Navy, and newly created Air Force. Elements of the 2nd Armored Division landed on the beach just south of Panama City, Florida, while receiving air support from Air Force and naval aircraft. Although small in comparison to joint operations in the future, Operation Seminole shows the intentionality of the services working together, especially after the passing of the National Security Act in July. December 15th sees Admiral Chester Nimitz replaced by Admiral Louis Stenfield as the 11th Chief of Naval Operations. 1947 comes to an end, seeing the establishment of the post-war fleet, along with the official unification of the military services under one Secretary of Defense. Click here for the next episode of the series. Make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button. This is U.S. military history.